We are working our way through the Bible, and we are in the book of Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, and I hope these little videos are helpful for you. I definitely am thankful for the Word of God and just for this opportunity to kind of work our way through the Bible. But we're in Song of Songs, and we introduced the book, and now we're just going to try to draw some key lessons we can learn from the book. It's the kindness of God, really, another demonstration of God's grace, that He would give us a book to help us with our relationships, our love relationship, our relationship with our spouse. That's what the Song of Songs is really about. It's a song. It's a song about human love. It is wisdom. It's God giving us wisdom about the marriage relationship, and we need that wisdom, definitely. We've, as humans, been around for a few thousand years, and for thousands of years we've been getting this wrong, and so we need to humbly come back to God and ask Him to help us, and He really does in the Song of Songs. There are at least 6 key lessons that we can learn from this book about our relationship with our spouse, or our future relationship with our spouse, or what to do if we're single and we never find a spouse. We can at least learn about the beauty of the marriage relationship from the book of Song of Solomon. But 6 key lessons, and the first is that God designed the relationship between a man and a woman to be enjoyed. If you don't learn that from the book of Song of Solomon, you're not reading it very carefully. This book is filled with desire, and you can see that as they talk to each other. Chapter 1, verse 2, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine." Chapter 3, verse 1, "On my bed by night I sought him, whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not." And then you begin to see how that discourages her, and she goes and she seeks to find her spouse because she desires him. There's excitement. Chapter 2, verse 8, there's desire, there's excitement. This is all normal, and this is all good in the marriage relationship. "The voice of my beloved, behold he comes," 2:8, "leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills." He just wants to get to her. He's so excited about the relationship they have with one another. There is excitement, there is desire, there is definitely delight. Chapter 1, verse 16, "Behold, you are beautiful, my beloved, truly delightful." Chapter 2, verse 3, "As an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men." Chapter 3, verse 11, "Go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart," and on and on. The marriage relationship is a good one. It's designed to be a good one. It's supposed to be a good one. God didn't come up with this plan because He was thinking, how can I mess with man and just make them suffer? He designed the marriage relationship to be filled with desire, to be filled with excitement, and to be filled with delight. That is good. That is normal. One way He intends for a couple, a husband and wife, to enjoy that relationship is through physical intimacy in marriage. Proverbs chapter 5, this isn't Song of Solomon now, but Proverbs chapter 5 gives us almost an introduction to the book of Song of Solomon. Proverbs 5, 15 through 19 is a father talking to his son about sex, and he's saying, you need to enjoy sex in marriage. Now that sounds shocking to some people who have a wrong idea of what God teaches about the sexual relationship. But he says, "Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be for yourself alone and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love." Be drunk. Be drunk in her love. That's a command from a father to a son. He's saying, don't go around messing around outside of marriage, but you need to find joy in this physical relationship in marriage. That's right, that's good. And you see in the Song of Songs how that plays out. They're loving to kiss one another in chapter 1, verse 2. In chapter 4, verse 10, we see how beautiful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your oils than any spice. Your lips drip nectar, honey and milk are under your tongue. Chapter 6, verses 2 and 3. My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the bed of spices, to graze in the gardens and to gather lilies. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. He grazes among the lilies, and I'm thankful for the poetry there, but that poetry has meaning, of course, and what it's telling us is that it's right. It's so right for a husband to enjoy a physical relationship with his wife, physical intimacy with his wife, sexual intimacy with his wife, and it's right for the wife to enjoy sexual intimacy with her husband. And we could go on and on throughout the book of Song of Songs, but you can do that on your own. What do we learn from Song of Songs? We learn, one, God designed the relationship between a husband and a wife, a man and a woman, a husband and wife, to be enjoyed. One way he intends for them to enjoy that relationship is through physical intimacy in marriage. Another way that he wants man and woman to enjoy that relationship is through a loving, intimate relationship. Not just sex, but also a relationship where they chase after each other. They delight in intimacy between one another. It's emphasizing the physical relationship, of course, and the joy of the physical relationship in the Song of Songs. But there's much more than just the physical relationship in the Song of Songs. I mean, this book is filled with a lot of words. Mark Dever has written, Song of Songs is not simply a book about physical intercourse between two animals. After all, it's a book of words. There's speech, there's poetry, there are people communicating with one another, verbalizing their desires, longings, needs, hopes, and even fears is a crucial aspect of the relationship between the lover and the beloved. I think we learn something here about the importance of delighting in one another and communicating that delight through words, Dwayne Garrett explains, they relish their pleasure in each other, not only with physical action, but with carefully composed words. Love, after all, he says, is a matter of the mind and heart and should be declared. The lesson for the reader is that he or she needs to speak often and openly of his or her joy in the beloved, the spouse. This is, for many lovers, a far more embarrassing revelation of the self than anything that's done with the body, but it's precisely here that the biblical ideal of love is present in the uniting of the bodies and hearts of the husband and wife in a bond that is as strong as death. Many homes would be happier if men and women would simply speak of their love for one another a little more often. C.J. Mahaney speaking to men, but it actually goes both ways since so much of the book is a woman speaking. But he says, there is a clear lesson at the heart of Solomon's song, a truth that threads through the entire book. I've sought to weave that same thread into this chapter. He wrote a book on Song of Solomon. He says it's a truth that should be emblazoned on the heart of every husband. If you remember nothing else from these pages, remember this. In order for romance to deepen, you must touch the heart and mind of your wife before you touch her body. This, gentlemen, is a truth that can change your marriage. Nothing kindles erotic romance in a marriage like a husband who knows how to touch the heart and mind of his wife before he touches her body. Too often we reverse the order. We touch her body prematurely and expect that she will respond immediately and passionately. But normally that's not how it works. In order for romance to deepen, Song of Solomon illustrates, you must touch the heart and mind of your wife before you touch her body. And what do we learn about how they communicate with one another in this book? Well, they express desire for the other person. Chapter 1, verse 2. Chapter 3, verse 1. This woman goes out at night to find her beloved, and that was not normal in that culture. Chapter 5, verse 4. My beloved put his hand to the latch, and my heart was thrilled within me. She wants her beloved to know that she is excited about him. They express their love for the other person. They are not the kind of husband who says, you know, I told you I loved you when I married you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. No, 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 no. They let the other person know what's in the heart. Chapter 1, verse 7, tell me, you whom my soul loves. Chapter 1, verse 13, my beloved, my beloved. Over and over, they describe each other as my beloved. They tell each other that they're beautiful. Chapter 1, verse 13, behold, you are beautiful, my love, my love. And they do that over and over and over. They compare the other person to others favorably. Maybe you can take some lessons here. They tell the person they love them. They express desire for the person. They get excited when they're around the other person. They compare the other person to others favorably. Chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. As a lily among brambles, so is my love among the young women. They express wholehearted commitment to the other person. My beloved is mine, and I am his. We belong to one another. They encourage the other person to come and enjoy physical intimacy. The husband does that to the wife does that to the husband. They let the other person know, we want this, we look forward to this. This is something that we delight in. That's okay to do in the marriage relationship. That's good, not just okay, that's right to do in the marriage relationship. They express delight in that intimacy. They let the other person know they enjoy this relationship. There's kissing, there's touching, there's enjoying, there's a longing to be with the other person, and they let that other person know, I want to be with you, and I'm dissatisfied when I'm not. And that's just a sampling. That's just a little bit of what's in Song of Songs. It's obvious they worked on this, and we should work on expressing our love and desire for our spouse in creative ways. This is amazing. This is a song. These guys really worked on it. Come back to C.J. Mahaney here. He says, let's try to bring this home a little. How many times, he's talking to husbands, how many times in the past week or month have you spoken to your wife in ways that she found to be romantically and perhaps erotically arousing? Now, what are the things that would hold you back from doing that on a regular basis? What are the issues in your own heart that would prevent you? Let me try on a few for size, he says. Maybe one of them will fit you. I'm not sure it really matters to her. Wrong, he says. Remember, thanks be to God, our wives aren't wired like men. The spoken word can be as alluring, provocative, and enticing to your wife as any visual stimulation you experience with her. I don't think I can come up with anything creative. It might not be easy, but if you'll humble yourself and seek for God's help, God is eager to give you the right phrase to use with your wife. The first such phrase will begin to break down the barriers of pride and self-absorption that hinder you. The second will be easier, and then you're on your way. It just seems silly, but it doesn't have to. Find out what's genuine and what genuinely works for you and your wife. Again, don't let the poetry aspect turn you off. What sort of language appeals to both of you and comes to you naturally? He tells the story about how he taught this at a church, and a man showed him a line he had written. Honey, to me, you're like freshly shucked corn in a trough surrounded by hungry hogs. Now, of course, that doesn't work in most of our cultural situations. That wouldn't get our wives too excited. But he says, I was immediately able to encourage him. If your wife is romanced by this, fantastic. If this speaks her language and encourages her and helps her understand your passion for her, then Solomon would be very pleased with you. The point is, you don't need to be a Shakespeare or even a Solomon. You don't need to imitate some specific style, but you should definitely follow the example given to us in this book by thinking about how to communicate your love to your spouse through words in a way that really thrills their heart, that touches their heart. Fourth lesson, 6 lessons. Husbands and wives should pursue a continuation and deepening of that loving, intimate, physical relationship after marriage. Song of Songs is not chase somebody until you get married, then get lazy. That's what so many guys do, right? They don't work their own garden, I always say. They go after, they get married. Instead of working their own garden over the years and making it beautiful, they They don't do anything there, and they look at other people's gardens and try to steal fruit. No, you need to keep working on your own garden. Keep pursuing intimacy after marriage. Even beautiful relationships have difficulties, and you see some of those difficulties in these songs. Twice, there's a problem before marriage in chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, and there's a problem after marriage in chapter 5, verses 6 and 8. A marriage doesn't just stay one way. You have to work on it. You have to pursue it. It is a lot like with a garden, isn't it? There's more than one way to destroy a garden. You can destroy a garden by taking a sledgehammer or something and just going crazy out there and whacking away at everything. Or you can just destroy a garden by just not working at all and just sitting and watching. And over years, that garden's going to get uglier and uglier and uglier. Most things don't get better without work, and marriage is definitely something that takes work, and it's worth it. It's worth it. When you work on this relationship, you're actually, in a sense, loving yourself even. But you are definitely glorifying God, and your marriage is going to be a lot more beautiful and a lot more enjoyable. And so after marriage, you need to keep working on romancing one another. The problem is many people are willing to put in that work before, but not after. And I think we learn here in Song of Solomon there needs to be, or at least we're reminded, there needs to be a constant pursuit of a deepening romantic relationship. One author suggests 7 practical steps. Date nights, regular date nights. Some you might plan. They don't have to be expensive, but just some way where you're thinking, how can I let my wife know I love her? How can we spend time with one another? And the wife can certainly do the same with the husband. Phone calls, SMSs, simple ways to say, you matter to me, you're special to me. Notes, gifts, getaways, surprises. I still remember a number of years ago, about once a month we would, or no, it wasn't once a month, once a quarter, 4 times the year, we would just go someplace very cheap, one night, very cheap, because we didn't have a lot of money, very cheap, one night a quarter, 4 times in the year. And wow, what a year. I can still remember how much we enjoyed those times and how special they were. And obviously you can't always keep doing that because of finances, but a little bit of effort brings joy even for years to come. Human love is, and that's because, here's the 5th lesson, human love is one of the greatest gifts God's given us. It sounds like work when you think about it, and a lot of people aren't really willing to put in the hard work, but it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. Why wouldn't you work on this? God designed the marriage relationship to be enjoyed. I always tell my kids, man, God's design is so much better. This is one of the things that just increases my faith and trust in God, because I've been married 25 years now, and there's no way I would trade. This is the best design. I wouldn't have come up with this design because of sin and all of those things, but I'm so glad I trusted God, and God changed my heart to embrace his design, because this design is the best, to be with one person for your whole life, totally committed. That person knows you, you know them, absolute devotion, all these years and years of memories, of joys as we serve with one another and care for one another. This relationship is amazing, and it enables you to serve others. And so human love, what a gift. It's one of the greatest gifts that God's given us. God designed this relationship to be a happy one. It's like Garden of Eden in a sense. It's a little paradise. I think of that when it comes to our home, that the husband-wife relationship is like a little heaven, taste of heaven on earth. This little Garden of Eden here on earth. In Song of Solomon chapter 8 verse 6, as he talks about human love, he talks about love being as strong as death. And think about it, if you're going to say something that's strong, it's definitely death. Nobody can overcome death besides Jesus. Nobody's been able to overcome death besides Jesus. So death is strong, and love is that strong. Love has that kind of strength. And then he says, many waters can quench love, cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. You can't buy this gift. This is just invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it. Praise God. Praise God. We should praise God for giving us this gift. And because this loving relationship within marriage, this is 6, because this loving relationship within marriage is so beautiful and so good, those who are single should be careful not to rush into this kind of love before they're willing and able to enjoy it the way that God designed. Did you hear that? There's a reason. There's a reason sex is for marriage. It's because God knows how we're supposed to enjoy it best. You're actually harming yourself. It's like self-harm if you don't listen to God in this area. You're not going to enjoy it the way that God designed it to be enjoyed. This is a wisdom book, and it's wisdom to the married for sure, but it's also wisdom to the unmarried. And that's why you have these daughters of Jerusalem, this chorus that comes out throughout the book over and over to explain what young ladies really should learn, what we all should learn from reading this book. Chapter 2, verse 7, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. And this is actually the woman. She's talking to the daughters of Jerusalem, those who are not married yet, and says, please, I've enjoyed this. I've tasted how good this is. And here's my advice to you. It's worth waiting for. It's worth waiting for. Chapter 3, verse 5, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases, till it's the right time. One man puts it, he says it like this, these girls are admonished to wait for sexual intimacy. Their bodies are saying yes. Their instincts for intimacy are saying yes. Their suitors might be saying yes, but they're admonished to say no. The wisdom message to these young women is to wait. Virgins, stay virgins, not forever, but for now. Wait for marriage. But notice how the writer artistically does this. The admonition does not come through the voice of a celibate prophet or a learned rabbi, a stern sage, or even a father and mother, but through a newlywed, the bride, a former daughter of Jerusalem herself. This is a book about peer pressure at its biblical best. And this newly married bride comes out of her wedding chamber, love scene after love scene, to tell the ladies, wait for this. It is worth it. It is worth it. Cool your passions now and arouse them later when it's time, because love and desire are so powerful, so beautiful, so wonderful. Be very, very careful with love. Of course, we have the gospel. God is so gracious, and he can forgive those of us who have sinned and haven't trusted that he knew what was best in this area. But that's grace. But wisdom comes and says, don't make this mistake if you don't have to. If you're a believer, you don't have to. Don't make this mistake. God has a really great plan, and trust that plan. Trust God and trust his plan, and you will enjoy the sexual relationship in marriage more than you can imagine. He's gracious. If we'll just listen to what he says and put what he says into practice, the marriage relationship can be, besides our relationship with Jesus, it can be a relationship like no other.